It was supposed to be a normal Tuesday morning. The sun was shining, the air was crisp, and I was preparing to head out for another busy day at work. I opened my garage door, revealing my pride and joy. A 1967 Chevy Corvette passed down from my grandfather. To me, it was more than just a car. It was family history on four wheels. But before I could even take in sight, my nightmare neighbor, the self-proclaimed HOA enforcer, came charging across the street. She pointed at my Corvette and screamed, "That's my car!" Then she dialed 911. When I first moved into this neighborhood over a decade ago, it felt like a dream. The streets were quiet, the lawns were neatly trimmed, and the people seemed friendly but respectful. For years, it was a place where families hosted block parties. Kids rode bikes down the street, and neighbors waved at each other in the mornings. It was, for the most part, exactly what I had wanted when I bought my home. But every paradise comes with storm, and mine arrived in the form of the woman who lived across the street. She was not just any neighbor. She had anointed herself the guardian of our HOA, despite not actually being in charge of anything. She walked around with the authority of a sheriff in a wild west town, except her badge was imaginary, and her sense of entitlement was very, very real. At first, she seemed like just another overly opinionated neighbor, the type you could brush off with a polite nod. But slowly, her interference in everyone's lives grew worse. She became the kind of person who would measure lawns with a ruler, report trash cans left out for too long, and glare at anyone who parked a car on the street. It started small, but it grew into something relentless. Over the years, she called the police, fire department, and city officials more times than anyone could count. She made herself everyone's problem, yet somehow convinced herself that she was the solution. To her, she was protecting the neighborhood's integrity. To the rest of us, she was nothing more than a walking headache. And for me, her obsession would eventually go far beyond lawns and trash cans. It would land me in one of the most surreal confrontations of my life, one that started with an open garage door and ended with police officers standing in my driveway. My first real encounter with her happened about 8 years ago. It was a Saturday morning around 7 a.m. I was still half asleep when she knocked on my door. I opened it, expecting some sort of emergency, only to find her standing there with a scowl on her face. She pointed down at my driveway and declared, "Your newspaper is creating an unsightly mess." I blinked in confusion, then looked where she was pointing. My paper had rolled slightly off the porch and landed on the edge of the driveway. That was her emergency. I laughed at first, thinking she was joking, but she wasn't. She sternly informed me that my failure to immediately pick up my paper lowered the appearance of the street. I shrugged it off, but it was only the beginning. The next time, it was about my grass. I had been out of town for a week, and while I was gone, heavy rain had made my lawn grow faster than usual. When I returned, it was maybe an inch taller than the HOA guidelines allowed. Before I even had a chance to mow, she had called code enforcement and the police. That was the first time an officer came to my house because of her. The officer was polite, even apologetic, but explained that he had to respond to every call. He told me, quietly, that she had been calling about a lot of neighbors. Things only escalated from there. A few years later, during a playoff game, my friend Mike parked his truck in my driveway. His F-150 hung about 2 feet into the street. Perfectly legal. Within 47 minutes, she had called the police, claiming it was an illegally parked commercial vehicle blocking traffic. When the officer arrived, he took one look and confirmed it was legal. Karen spent 10 minutes arguing about property values, while the officer tried not to roll his eyes. Then came the leaf blower incident. I was clearing my yard one Saturday afternoon at 2 p.m. Karen called 911 again, claiming I was violating quiet hours. The officer who showed up looked completely bewildered when he saw me putting away my blower. He explained once again that I was well within the law. Each time, she embarrassed herself, but she never learned. And each time, my patience grew thinner. The moment that really shifted the neighborhood's opinion of her happened during our annual block party. It was a tradition. Everyone brought food, kids played in the street, and for once, the neighborhood felt united. That year, I had set up my smoker in my yard, ready to serve my famous barbecue ribs. People were excited. It was the highlight of the party. Karen, however, had other plans. She had taken upon herself to act as a block party coordinator, clipboard in hand, marching around like a drill sergeant. She told people where they could place their chairs, scolded kids for running too fast, and generally ruined the festive mood. Then she turned her attention to me. My smoker, according to her, was a fire hazard. She demanded I move it. I calmly explained that I had been using it for years, that it was in my own yard, and that it was perfectly safe. She didn't like that answer. 20 minutes later, a fire truck rolled into our street, lights flashing. Firefighters jumped out looking for an emergency. Karen proudly pointed to my smoker, declaring it an illegal open flame. The fire captain inspected it for less than 10 seconds before declaring it safe. He then turned to Karen and gave her a stern lecture about wasting emergency services. The entire neighborhood witnessed it. Kids stared. Parents shook their heads. And for the first time, people began to openly resent her. She had gone from being an annoyance to being someone who was embarrassing all of us. From that day forward, people avoided her. Conversations stopped when she walked by. She was still relentless, but her grip on the neighborhood's patience was slipping. Unfortunately, for me, her attention would soon focus on something much more personal than a lawn or a smoker. I have always been a car guy, but one vehicle in particular holds my heart, a 1967 Chevy Corvette. This car isn't just metal and wheels. It's a piece of family history. My grandfather bought it brand new back in the 60s. He cared for it meticulously, and after he passed, it came to me, the car is in pristine condition. I keep it garaged, drive it only on perfect weather weekends or to car shows, and I maintain it like it's priceless. Because to me it is. I have the original paperwork, maintenance records, even old photographs of my grandfather proudly standing next to it. In a neighborhood obsessed with lawns and landscaping, my Corvette was my pride. Sometimes I'd open my garage, just admire it, or let the neighbors take a peek. Most people appreciated it, smiled, and maybe share a compliment. But not Karen. To her, my car wasn't cherished heirloom. It was a dollar sign. Every time she saw it, she made comments about its value. She asked me if I planned to sell it. She even suggested that I didn't deserve it, if I only drove it occasionally. At first, I brushed off her comments as nosy curiosity. But over time, it became clear she was obsessed. Karen's fixation grew more intense with every passing month. She'd linger whenever my garage door was open, pretending to check her mailbox while staring at the Corvette. She'd ask intrusive questions. How much is it worth? Do you have insurance? Are you really going to just let it sit there? I noticed her tone shifting from curious to entitled. She once told me, a car like that should belong to someone who actually drives it, not just hides it away. I laughed it off, but deep down, I knew she was serious. Neighbors started whispering that Karen was jealous, and they weren't wrong. It was written all over her face. What I didn't know was just how far she'd go to turn her jealousy into action. One summer morning, her obsession would cross into full-blown delusion, and it all began the moment I opened my garage door. It was a Tuesday morning. I was dressed for work, coffee in hand, ready to grab my commuter car. I hit the garage opener, and the door slowly rose, revealing the Corvette's shining red paint. And then, like clockwork, Karen appeared. She had been pacing the street with her mug of coffee, pretending to be neighborhood security. The second she saw the car, she froze. Her eyes widened, and then she stormed across my driveway like she was about to arrest me. "That's my car," she screamed, jabbing a finger toward the Corvette. I stood there in disbelief. "Excuse me?" She launched into a wild explanation. According to her, she had purchased a 1967 Corvette from a dealer just weeks earlier, and it was supposed to be delivered soon. She insisted that the car sitting in my garage was, in fact, hers. I tried reasoning with her. This has been my car for over a decade. Everyone in this neighborhood knows it. But she wasn't listening. She whipped out her phone, dialed 911, and declared, "I'm reporting a theft in progress." I knew leaving would look suspicious, So I stayed. My heart raced as I realized police officers were about to show up to investigate me for stealing my own car. Minutes later, 2 officers arrived. Karen immediately rushed over, pointing at my garage. There it is. That's my stolen Corvette. The officers turned to me. Sir, can we see your documentation? Calmly, I nodded. I brought out everything. Registration, insurance, the original title for my grandfather, maintenance logs, even photos spanning decades. One officer carefully reviewed each document, while the other examined the Corvette. Karen shoved her papers at them, insisting she had proof. But her proof was nothing more than a sales slip from a dealership for a completely different car. The officers asked for the VIN number. I showed them every spot, including the hidden VIN locations that only true classic car enthusiasts know about. Every number matched my paperwork. Then came the twist. The officer dialed the number on Karen's receipt and spoke to the dealer directly. Within minutes, the truth unraveled. Karen had indeed purchased a 1967 Corvette, but it was a rusted-out project car sitting at the dealer's lot, not my pristine family heirloom. When the officer relayed this information, Karen's face turned pale. The officer looked Karen in the eye. Ma'am, the car you bought is still at the dealership. It's in poor condition and awaiting restoration. This vehicle here has been registered to him for over a decade. Karen's jaw tightened. No, that's mine. They promised me it was in excellent condition. The officer shook his head. The VINs don't match. His documentation is airtight. This is not your car. By this time, several neighbors had gathered, watching the drama unfold. Whispers filled the air. Kids pointed. Adults shook their heads. Karen tried one last desperate plea, raising her voice and insisting I was lying. The officers finally had enough. Ma'am, filing false reports is a crime. If this happens again, you could face charges. Her face turned red as she realized she had not only failed to steal my car, but had also embarrassed herself in front of the entire neighborhood. In the days that followed, word spread quickly. Karen returned to the dealership, demanding to know why her car didn't look like mine. The staff showed her paperwork, proving she had purchased a fixer-upper, not a showpiece. She left furious, but powerless. Neighbors began treating her differently. Once, people tolerated her complaints. Now, they avoided her altogether. Her credibility was destroyed. Even those who had once sympathized with her stopped taking her seriously. As for me, I continued to enjoy my Corvette. I washed in the driveway, took it to shows, and drove it proudly through the neighborhood. Karen stopped approaching me entirely. She had lost, and she knew it. Looking back, I realized something important. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need to scream or fight. All I had to do was stand firm, present the truth, and let her unravel herself. Karen's obsession exposed her own delusion. Her false accusations backfired, and her reputation crumbled without me lifting a finger. Sometimes, the best response to outrageous lies is patience. When the truth comes to light, it speaks louder than anything else. Now, my neighborhood is calmer. People roll their eyes at Karen, but no one takes her seriously. And me? I still have my grandfather's Corvette, my peace of mind, and the satisfaction of knowing that truth won over madness.